Today is September 15, 2021, and I am at the African American Museum located in DeLand, Florida. And I'm going to take a little bit of time and talk a little bit about a quilt that I created. The name of the quilt is called Metamorphosis. And for those of you in the Florida area, this exhibit, which is, as you see, I'll pan very quickly, you can see some of the different quilts were done by a group of women that I quilt with. We're called the Story Quilters. We meet at Hannibal Cultural Center, which is in Winter Park. Today is also Yom Kippur. So for those who practice Judaism, Yom Tov. So I'm specifically going to talk about some of the symbolism in my quilt, which I call Metamorphosis. Let's first start with the center image. And before I talk about the center image, I just want to talk a little bit about quilting. Quilting has been a part of African American culture, as it is many cultures. I grew up in Philadelphia, and not far from where I grew up, the Amish people have a very long history of quilting, and among African Americans, we would use scraps of clothing, material to create quilts. They served a utilitarian reason to keep people warm, as well during that period in history when there were those who were escaping slavery and following the North Star to freedom. Quilts had messages contained within them. So I'm very fortunate that I've been able to travel extensively. My father was in the service, and when I've traveled, I try to bring back material from the places I have been, as well if I'm aware that there are quilt patterns which exist, I do that as well. So the center image of this particular quilt is a Hawaiian quilt pattern, and the name of the quilt pattern is Anila, A-N-E-L-A, which stands for angel. And the Hawaiians believed that we live in two worlds, the spiritual and the physical. The angels are just part of our spiritual world, providing us with guidance in our everyday life. And so it may be hard for you to actually see that these are angel wings that I tried to outline in gold thread. But when I saw this fabric, it spoke to me because of the color purple, which is my favorite color, because of the gold images contained within the pattern, which to me speaks to Egypt and Egyptology. And there are various symbols, as you can see. That's a cartouche. That's an ankh. We have different symbols which are symbolic of Egyptology. And so I would say to you to do some research. So as you see, Egypt is part of North Africa, and Africa as a continent, which is why I have the shape of Africa in the middle, and it's also green to represent the land. And of course, we are all African. We are all descended from Lucy. And so I also wanted to include a red continent of Africa to represent the blood that unites all people of color, as well to represent the bloodshed, the blood that we shed during our struggle for liberation and freedom. Green, of course, represents the landmass, which is the continent of Africa, which is rich in minerals and history. And then, of course, black to represent the color of our skin and to represent people all over the world who are of African descent. So, how did the quilt come into being before I get back to some of the imagery contained therein? Earlier this year, the weekend before the 4th of July, 3 of my sister girls that I went to college with, we had the opportunity to spend a long weekend at Tybee Island. And Tybee Island is located a little bit past Savannah. And I would suggest that you Google Tybee Island, because as with everything, there is history associated with Tybee Island. In fact, there was a time when Black people could not go to Tybee Island. They could not put any part of their body in the ocean. So I took the train from Winter Park, Florida to Savannah, and then my girlfriend picked me up, and I knew that the first full day that I was going to be at Tybee Island, it was going to rain. So I had not decided exactly what my quilt was going to be, but I took all of my fabric and while everyone basically was sleeping, I went out on the patio to the accompany of probably it was either 2 or 3 crows that were in a palm tree. This is what I pieced together. I always knew the name of the piece was going to be Metamorphosis, because we have indeed gone through a great deal of change these last, say, 2 years, a year and a half. And so the butterfly, and when I saw the fabric with the gold butterflies, you can see there's a gold butterfly within the shape of a butterfly that I actually cut out. To me, that was significant and symbolic. And so the butterfly in different cultures represents different things, but it stands for change, transformation, hope, and actually, as we know, the actual process of metamorphosis occurs when the caterpillar becomes a butterfly. And so butterflies also are a metaphor for transformation, hope, rebirth, and resurrection. From the time that I initially pieced the butterflies on the quilt up until the time I completed the quilt, feathers found me. And what I mean by feathers found me is exactly what I said. I have a long-standing history or relationship with feathers finding me. And so for those of you who may not know, feathers are sacred gifts from the divine, a show of force from the heavens that they're listening to your prayers. Part of this stems from the fact that feathers come from birds, and there are some ethnic groups or indigenous people that believe that because birds have the ability to fly and most feathers have a narrow, hollow shaft, and it was through that narrow, hollow shaft that the ancestors believed they carried prayers, the souls, and wishes and good wishes of people. They also represent good luck. Other symbolism, it's a sign that a divine presence is watching over you. It can also mean that souls of loved ones who have gone on to glory are protecting you, guiding you, granting your heart's desires. And each angel is given a specific color to represent their different responsibilities. So during the course of me working on the quilt, a pink feather found me. And a pink feather represents unconditional love, romance, compassion, and harmony. The orange feather represents energy, change, success, creativity. The brown feather represents stability, grounding, home, endurance. And the black feather is protecting your energy and also can symbolize a spiritual awakening. You probably can't see, but when I was doing the actual sewing, let me see if I can't find one. I created the symbol which is known as the Limnus Gate, which is the mathematical symbol which represents the concept of infinity. And I know everyone has seen the symbol. It looks like the figure 8 turned on its side. I'm just trying to see if I can, okay, so there's kind of one there that I created. It also means value that increases without limit. The raised fist. I saw, I don't know if it was a poem, but it stuck with me, and it says, when I raise my fist, it's not to say we are better than another race of people. I raise my fist to uplift my brothers and sisters who have been degraded for hundreds of years. I also attached different charms. So that one says smile. It's the same in all languages. We have this charm, which is the Eye of Horus, also known as the Wet Jet Eye or Oud Jet Eye. And it's an ancient Egyptian symbol that represents well-being, healing, and protection. Down here, I have a Ganesh. And Ganesh symbolizes wisdom, understanding, and a discriminating intellect that one must possess to attain perfection in life. He's also known as Ganapati, which is the Hindu god of beginnings, as well a remover of obstacles. Here we have the hand of Fatima or Hamsa, which represents their 5 fingers. The 5 fingers represent the 5 pillars of Islam, which are the profession of faith, which is Shahada, prayer, Salat, alms, which is Zakat, fasting, which is Psalm, and pilgrimage, which is Hajj. It also, in Judaism, represents the 5 books of the Torah: Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. I hope if you are near the Central Florida area, near Orlando, that you can come to DeLand and see this exhibit before it leaves. It will be here until October.